Hi, I'm Madonna Guy, and this is the Natural Alternative Podcast. Welcome. I'm here today with Amanda Bradford and Renergy Ordono. They are involved in the ASEA and Redox Biochemistry technology. Welcome, girls.
Thank you. Hello.
So you've both been using this technology for some time. Amanda, you for about 5 years. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this?
Absolutely. I'd love to share the story. Look, I live in Queensland, Australia, and my husband and I have an amazing little girl, and we've been married for 24 years this year. So our first experience with practicing on a child was our dog. We acquired a little Maltese poodle, and at the age of 12, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with an extremely high white cell count. And we were obviously very, very upset. The vets gave us a choice of either getting some treatment for that or letting him just live out his days and saying goodbye when he needed to go. We chose the second option. We took him home, and within a couple of days, his legs were falling out from underneath him and he'd gone blind. And we just knew that we couldn't leave him like that. So it was a Saturday morning when we were making the decision to take him in. And we rang my husband's parents first to tell them what was going on. And she said, hang on, we're coming around. And when she came, she brought this bottle of product with her. And she said, look, I was introduced to this a month ago. I started taking it for my own health. The chiropractor told me about it, and he said it does something to do with repairing cells. Why don't you give some to Toby? So this was our first experience. That day, we basically got a little syringe from the kids' Panadol boxes, and we just started giving him 5 ml lots. We probably gave him about 20 of those that day and over Sunday. And look, he was okay-ish, so we just kept doing that. And within 2 weeks, he could walk and he was seeing. So no doubt he still had this raging problem going inside internally, but he was functioning, right? So we were grateful for that. We just kept giving it to him, not knowing how long we had or what was going to happen. The short version is he lived for another 2.5 years. At 15 and a half, and what was looking back on it, we watched his body get more strength in it. Like within a year, he had the strength to jump back up on the couch. So although he was aging, he had quality of life in his body for that extra 2.5 years.
So his eyesight came back.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever his body was failing that time, like he was on his way, his feet were falling out and his eyesight left him. And all of that came back within 2 weeks. We rolled up the slip mats that we had around the house on the tiles where he couldn't get around without them. And we were just back to, living and giving it to him and not really, we're ignorant really of what we just did it. So that was our first introduction to it.
Which is pretty amazing, because when you do give the body what it needs and you help the body to function properly, anything can happen. And Renergy, how did you become involved in the ASEA and Redox biochemistry?
Well, I was on my, motherly duties on a weekend, going through Capalaba over in the Redlands, and I came by this little Filipino shop that was selling Filipino bread. And at the time, I wasn't familiar with any Filipinos around the area, but Maria, so she's one of the ladies that associates with the Redox technology as well. She, we just got chatting, and she had a spare room at the back where I began treating massage. She offered me her little space there to have a just treatment with the community, the Filipino community there. Yeah, so she had it on the shelf there, and there was a time where I ran out of my anti-inflammatories, and so I asked her if she had anything that I can use. And Maria, she's a very generous person. She's likes to help the community, the people, you know, so she was sharing what she had to offer. And yeah, so I began kind of just treating with it as well. So as a therapist, and you know, I thought, okay, I'll take it home and I'll use it for myself. I used it in my skincare routine. And
can I ask what symptoms you had that you were using it for?
So just
or more just okay.
Yeah. So as a massage therapist, you know, I like to use anything anti-inflammatory to increase circulation as well.
It was around about then that we met, wasn't it? She invited you to come along to an information session. So at that stage, you were just experimenting with it. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. I was basically just sampling it on myself and just on the clients in the little Filipino community before I even knew what it was. Hey, until Amanda came to the shop and she ran a talk.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how we met. Was through that little Filipino shop in Capalaba.
And that allowed you then to be able to go, right, I can now see the potential for this, and then started using it in lots of other ways and seeing
you know, I was
amazing results, really. Like we went and visited some of your clients, didn't we? And we've
talking and I just, you know, it just clicked and I understood, not completely, but you know, I understood just you know, supporting your body and how it's meant to work properly, you know, everything I believe in
as a natural therapist.
Exactly.
So that's
how I became interested in.
So how does the biochemistry, the redox biochemistry work?
This is the amazing component of it. And I loved learning all of this when we first, you know, when I realized that this was doing something that none of the other protocols that I had in our household were doing. So I love my ferments, I love my oils, I love natural remedies galore. If I could be a herbalist in another time at some point, I would love to be that. So I love, yay! So it's so nice to meet you, Madonna. I love it. So I'm amateur. I do it. I have all the books and I do, you know, I make tinctures and I do all this stuff, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So anyway, I was using all these things in our household, and it wasn't until we added this in that light bulb moments happened, little, you know, things repaired faster. So what I found out though was that within our body, you know, we are made up of cells. We're all, you know, we're heart cells, we're lung cells, and we're bone cells and blood cells, and everything is cells. And within those cells, we have, you know, the mitochondria, which produces our energy. And a byproduct of that is a chemical reaction that happens in every single cell of our body that creates a signal. And this signal is what we're talking about. This signal sends a signal to the immune system. It says, you know, I'm healthy, come and protect me. Or I'm damaged, come and repair me. Or I'm too damaged, you need to commit apoptosis, get me out, replace me with a healthy cell. But what's fascinating is that it wasn't even until the 1990s that scientists even discovered that this function happens in our body. And there was 3 gentlemen that got a Nobel Prize in 98 for the discovery. So this is how new it is to the world. You know, the fact that they were able to discover that our body does this, which is just the way that our body tells where we need to have healing happen. You know, we're constantly aging. Our body's making this in abundance when we're young. We hit puberty and it starts to decline by 10% per decade for the rest of our life. So that's our aging. Then what have we done in the last 100 years? We've done these amazing inventions, and we've added all these extra toxins and chemicals, and then of course stress, and all of that impacts this signal in our body. So, you know, all disease really is just coming from, you know, one cell that didn't get detected. You know, the signal strength wasn't strong enough, and we didn't know, let's say, a heart cell or a kidney cell or a lung cell or a bone cell, it didn't get its signal to say, I'm not happy over here, I need you to come and fix me up. And that one cell turned into 2, 2 turns into 4, 4 into 8, and it just keeps going. And, you know, it might be a year, it might be 20 years before we have some symptoms and we go off and we say, you know, I've got a problem here. But in reality, it's been building for a long time.
Yeah.
And so this is where it starts in our body. And that's the exciting part, is that we even know that it's there and we can start treating even deeper than what we ever have before.
And it's sort of funny, you mentioned herbal medicine before.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with herbal medicine is because there aren't, and although there are these days, going back 25 years ago when I started 30 years ago, there weren't thousands and thousands of double-blind placebo studies on herbs. And that was the reason that conventional medicine could say that it didn't work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. In 1910, you know the whole Rockefeller story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Rockefellers took over the medical industry in around 1910, and pretty much it took a generation of doctors to have to die off, and then they lost all of their decades of knowledge about herbs and how they worked and all that anecdotal evidence.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then they only used medicines moving forward that were made from petrochemical byproducts.
Which
so,
of
course, 10 years later, the Rockefeller Foundation then started the American Cancer Foundation.
Yeah, right.
Because cancer took off at the speed of light. So thank goodness there's researchers. Do you know who those, just out of curiosity, do you know who those Nobel Prize winners were in 1998? It's okay if you don't. I'd love to find out. I might actually make a note.
Yeah.
Like them at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I've got their names, and they're right here. They I could share the screen, or I can just spell them out, because you know how they're funny names, right? There's Robert Furchgott. There is Louis J. Ignaro, Ignarro, and okay, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Ferid, Ferid, maybe?
Ferid, okay.
Murad, Murad. So those are the three gentlemen.
No, none of them.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's so cool. I love it when people get Nobel Prizes for something that actually helps us.
I know, right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, the other interesting thing is Dr. James Watson, who discovered DNA, he said that this is a bigger discovery than me discovering DNA.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
It does make you wonder.
Yeah.
It makes you hopeful too, you know, so hopeful for
Renergy, you're so right.
From the last 2 years, for example, you know.
Exactly.
And I think if not now, it's definitely the perfect time to share with anybody, everybody, because we all can just do a little support internally and externally every day.
Absolutely. So some people are still fortunate to have their health, and to maintain that is so important. And that's why we continue to take it in our family. My 9-year-old now has been taking it since she was 4. And, you know, at the end of the day, what things that we find with adults as well, but especially children that are, you know, generally healthy anyway. First of all, she doesn't get anywhere near as many things that are going around. Yeah. And if we do have something, the speed of recovery is a lot faster.
Yeah. And it's funny, I do bioresonance.
Yes.
And the mitochondria is one of the 13 systems that it actually shows all sorts of things going on in there. And I find very regularly that there's lots of toxins that show. Yes. So does this help detoxification at all?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it is getting down into the communication. So when it signals to say, I'm not happy, then that's exactly what it's doing. If it needs, doesn't matter what that cell needs, it's communicating that to it. So that's why everybody's seeing lots of different results with it, is because each individual body has something going on with it, and it's signaling that exact problem. So we can support it with the supplements, we can support it with exercise and with water and with good food. But at the end of the day, if the signal's not working, then some of that goodness that we've given it can be missed and not worked optimally.
And from the Redox Biochemistry perspective, what is the reason that the signal stops working? Is that to do with toxicity, and is it just all of that environmental and chemical and emotional stress that's happening to our body on a daily basis?
On top of aging. So yes.
On top of aging, yeah. Because I know that
yes.
things like stem cells, from the time we're 25, we release 5% less per year. Every year from the time we're 25. So therefore stem cells are another mechanism used to anti-age.
Yes, that's right.
And muscle mass, if we're not doing something specifically to look after our muscles, we can lose up to 5% per year. We can stay the same weight. And you've heard of sarcopenic obesity? I said that to someone yesterday. I had someone in who's been doing the HCG program with me, and she's lost 5 kilos in about 11 days and feeling pretty awesome. And one of the things when I looked at her bioimpedance screening, which shows me the fat mass, muscle mass, hydration, inflammation, toxicity, and she was, and I said, well, at the moment, you're 5.5 kilos under muscle mass. I said, eventually, when you get so much fat down, you're going to be a skinny fat girl. We need to work. And she said, that's terrible, but I love it. She said, and she's a teacher. She thought, sarcopenic obesity, it just,
Exactly. Oh, I look forward to coming and chatting with you.
So it's
good.
So it's sort of because that's another process that really helps detoxing as well, because that's detoxing brown fat from the body, which is stored in and around our organs under trauma and stress.
Exactly. You would love this lady, Anne Louise Gittleman. She's written over 35 books. She's known as the health guru in the United States. And one of her books, Radical Metabolism, a powerful way to new plan to blast fat and reignite your energy in just 21 days. I got this book and got her to sign it, met her over in the States. And she's gone back and she's rewriting all of her books to incorporate redox into her protocols.
Right.
So it talks about there that it's promoting our body for the metabolism to work correctly.
Yes.
And so it's really exciting that we can use it in so many areas of our life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your husband used it recently for healing?
Well, yes. So about over a year ago, in February last year, you remember this quite clearly. Yes, he was involved in a motorbike accident. So it was dark. It was a road that he had never rode on before, and he hit a chicane, so like an island that was separating the road from going straight and going left. And so he hit that and flipped over his motorbike, kind of flung 200-300 meters. And
lucky he's a big solid dude with lots of muscle to support his body.
Yeah, I know, right?
Adrenaline, I think that was happening. But in all, I think all of the ambos and the police, they were just really quite amazed that he was still standing, but he did have to stay at the PA overnight for scans and everything like that. And just nerve-wracking because we weren't even sure if he had to stay in the spinal unit or anything.
His body went flying through the air after hitting this pylon. I was at 150 meters.
Yeah, it was
about 100. A bystander said he was like
and had he been taking it before that?
Yes, but inconsistently. Right. It was kind of like,
Gee, sounds like a man.
Just whenever I would remind him, he would take it. But just as well, before he left, I did tell him to have a dose. So, I 100% believe that it would have supported him through that impact and through that shock, through the nights until I saw him all fluid up and bruised and battered at the hospital. Then,
so you were rubbing the Renew on his body, weren't you? The molecule, the gel form of the molecules.
I couldn't, because he had a neck brace on and everything. It was I thought because of that, I'd just squirt the gel in his mouth, so it would target, all up here, specifically. And then within an hour, I thought that I'll just give him the liquid, every hour. Every hour from there. But I knew it was beginning to work because he needed to go to the toilet. So his body was flushing the fluid, in a matter of hours. And he felt like he had to get up and go to the toilet.
Well done.
Yeah, and his result in his neck,
strength, you know.
he'd fractured, hadn't he? Some
Fractured
vertebrae.
C7.
Yeah, and they'd said to him, you wouldn't go back to work
for about 12 weeks. And amazingly, he went back to work in 4 weeks.
Wow, incredible.
That's intensive recovery from, you know.
Because I ride a motorbike, as you know, and I've been, and I'm part of a girls group on Facebook, and I know there's 12,000 members Australia-wide. But it's amazing how often I see pictures of them in hospital wearing all of their gear, and they'll run into a kangaroo coming across the road or a rabbit crossing the road, or, you know, just something that they've got no control over because they're really big on their gear. He wasn't wearing a lot of gear, was he?
No, just the helmet.
Just the helmet, and still he managed to be back at work in 4 weeks, which is quite phenomenal.
It was a miracle, wasn't it, really? Yeah, absolutely.
And Amanda actually came, I think, that weekend. Hey,
no, it happened to...
He had cut his hair off, and he was just a different person.
That's amazing. And within your family, Amanda, so it was your mother-in-law who started using it, or your mother?
Yeah, my mother-in-law started using it at recommendation from the chiropractor, and she, you know, from there it was the dog, and then it was my little girl who had an accident. She'd fallen over and landed face first on her 2 front teeth, and developed an infection in one, and the other one had turned black. And the dentists were going to put her into hospital and remove them. So this was at the age of 4. And I was, you know, I had my mummy meltdown moment, like when I have a daughter with no 2 front teeth for 2 years. Anyway, we realized we were using this stuff on the dog, and we thought we'll try it. So we postponed surgery, and within 30, 40 days, the infection was gone. And then about 10 months, the dark tooth turned to a lighter grey, and she kept them until they were ready to come out around 6. So those 2 things were our first introduction to it. Like, oh my goodness, what is this? We also had a friend who is a workaholic. He's a farmer and a truckie and all this sort of stuff. And he developed an infection in his leg from some soil, and almost lost his leg twice, and his life, really. A couple of times he came out, he'd come through it all, but his body was just fatigued, and he just had no energy, couldn't get up off the couch at 10 o'clock in the morning. And this is someone who does, you know, 100-hour weeks. And we just said to him, well, hey, Rob, you know, like, we're using this stuff. We don't really know what it is, but it might be able to help you. And he, you know, didn't have much to lose. So within what we saw it do for him was just the reinforcement that this is something that we need to tell people about it. They need to have the option to know that there is something that they can do further, rather than sometimes just going round and round in circles and, you know, not getting anywhere.
And I always love products and technology that gets to some of the root causes of things. So, you know, when it comes to, you know, because, for example, you could take plenty of calcium and magnesium and coenzyme Q10 and things like that, you know, for your bones and muscles. But if it comes back to that cellular communication, or back to the stem cells, or back to your inability to function at that cellular level, those other things really aren't going to do the job. And that's when people often say, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, natural therapies don't work. I've tried this and I've tried this and I've tried that. And I love hearing people say that, because to me, my first thought as a naturopath is, well, what quality did you do and what dose did you take? Because fish oils aren't fish oils. There's a very big difference, and you get what you pay for. So when people come to me, I always listen to what hasn't worked, because that's the biggest lesson for what's going on with them.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about this is, you know, I'm not a naturopath. I don't know all those things, but I know they're important. So it is important that people go back and source your expertise. You find what they haven't done. And then with the Redox on the side, it's just amplifying their healing ability. But you know what's really important to know is that what this does is it doesn't cure, it doesn't diagnose, and it doesn't really treat anything, because it's native to our body. So this is an exact replica of what our body's making. So all as we're doing is topping up our signal, and our body's doing the rest. So we're only empowering our body to heal itself. Definitely no claims there for anything else.
Yeah.
And it's really important in Australia. You would know that the TGA, to approve anything, you need to have an LD50 rating, lethal dose rating. And when we were trying to get this into Australia, they did the testing, and it didn't matter how much product the subjects took. They could not overdose them.
And natural therapies are always harsher, treated more harshly than other things on the market.
Yeah.
And like one example I've got is that there's been a couple of supplements we've lost in the last 30 years since I've been a naturopath. One was vitamin D. It was not available for about 10 years. Most people won't even remember that, because if it's not there, you don't think about it. And if it's not there, it's not advertised. So when it finally came back about 10 years ago, and at the time you could get massive doses in America because people would use vitamin D at 50,000 to 100,000 international units a day, whereas here in Australia we have 1,000 international units per capsule. Just saying.
Yeah.
You know, and another one was Comfrey, which also helps externally with bone healing and internally with organ tissue damage.
Yeah.
And what they did, the damage rating on that, they had to feed rats the equivalent of the alkaloids in Comfrey, which was the equivalent of 66,000 leaves per day. So they took the toxin, toxin from a plant where the whole plant doesn't do that toxic thing. You have to take the toxin out, multiply it hugely. It was 66,000 leaves per day equivalent. They fed these rats, and what a surprise if you got liver disorders. And the third one off the top of my head was Carver. We lost Carver for, once again, probably 15 years or something like that. And the reason we lost that is because there were people in the Northern Territory who were boiling Carver in 44-gallon drums, drinking it like crazy, along with drinking alcohol and, and they ended up with liver damage. They were chronic alcoholics. They blamed it on the Carver.
Yeah,
so we lost. So one instance of liver damage. Yeah. And once again, the natural therapies get blamed every day of the week and twice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
and you know what?
It didn't work on the redox.
Exactly.
You can't overdose on what's already inside your body.
Exactly. Our body. So that's probably an important point to make, is that, we have three different categories of health. So we've got the drugs, we have our natural, and now we have redox, which is native to the body. So like we can overdose on water if we had too much. Whereas because this is exactly what's in our body, it's made of salt and water, the same that our cells are. We are a salty solution. We go to hospital and they give us a saline drip. And that's the chemical reaction is happening in that saline solution. So the product is started with pristine salt and water, and over 3.5 days, they convert it into this molecule. So they're what our body doesn't use, if we gave it a lot or too much than it needed, it would just convert it back into the saline solution. So it is just incredible that we actually have something that is can be used for every age group, animals, anything living. Plants need redox signaling to communicate so they can grow. So people do use it on their plants.
Yeah. And the human being, we're not that complicated. We've only got 23,000 genes, whereas the bugs in our intestine each have over 1 million genes. Yeah. So they're 40 times more clever at staying alive than we are.
Yes.
Because our genes are all about keeping us alive.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's where we're talking about genes before, with the study that they did through a genetics company. So this was done over 8 weeks, and they gave the participants, it was double-blinded placebo. So the participants.
So what that means, people, is if we've got two groups of people, And one group gets given a placebo, was it a real placebo, can I ask?
Yeah, I believe it was salt water.
Okay. And I say that because in the trials they did with the jibbity jabs, the COVID jibbity jabs, they actually used a different vaccine. So they didn't use saline, and they have never used a proper saline with any vaccine trial ever. They always use something else like a hepatitis or anyway. So it's not a true double placebo study in those trials. So it means they're using a true placebo and saline solution is a true one. And then you're using the actual drug, but also the doctors and nurses who are administering it, or the scientists, they don't know whether you've got the placebo. Otherwise, it's not a true double-blind placebo. Because otherwise the doctors could say, well, I'll give Renergy this and I'll give Amanda that, and then go, let's flip it over because, Renergy's not getting the results we're after. So they could manipulate it during the trial. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So sorry. So it was a double-blind placebo trial.
Yeah, great. Thanks for explaining that. And what they did over 8 weeks was test this on the participants. They tested 5 gene markers. So the company they used tests with the likes of Ancestry.com, a genetic testing company. And they tested cardiovascular and the elasticity of your arteries, immune system, inflammation, gut health, and hormone modulation. Over 8 weeks, the participants that were on the product had an improvement of between 20 and 31% in all of those areas. Then they retested them 8 weeks after finishing the trial, and every participant had gone back to where they were when they started. So, some people obviously are healing faster naturally and others slower. So they all went back to where they were. So what was interesting was that some of the participants felt something in that 8 weeks and some didn't. And it didn't matter because their blood markers showed genetically that they were seeing an improvement. And that's the thing, our body is going to determine where it needs to heal. So, sometimes people might be looking for a solution for something, maybe an ache or, discomfort or something. But the body goes, I've got a major organ that it's challenged right now and I need to work on that first. So, the body will, that's the great thing about it, is we don't need to know. We just are all keeping our body in an optimal state for its ability to do what it's designed to do.
Yeah. And I think the great thing about people starting to take anything for their health, they start to think about other things with their health.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, if someone starts getting less aches and pains or more energy, or their hair starts growing back, or their skin's healing faster, or their bowels are moving better, whatever it is, that makes them think, well, how come my doctor's never told me this?
No.
How often do you get asked that?
Yeah.
Because I've been a naturopath over 27 years. So to me, my answer is always, well, doctors aren't taught this. In fact, they're actually deliberately taught not to think about health. They're taught to prescribe drugs and to think about disease states and names. That's what they're designed to do. When they get your bloods, all they're interested in is, are they within range? They don't think beyond that 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. And you're so right. And that, even what you and I have said, that not being medically trained as a doctor, but I've had that said to me by doctors that have even come to this company. Like there are people in here that are dentists that were head of anesthesiology and pain management in a hospital, that now this is what they do because they can help people more efficiently than what they were doing before. There was a point there I wanted to make was, so one of the ladies, right, her husband grows, he's a stem cell transplant man, and he grew a set of lungs outside of the body. And he himself had lung issues. So he was carrying around an oxygen tank for his own lungs. And his wife is this head of, a whole department in a hospital. And between them, they weren't able to find a solution for his lungs. And it wasn't until he started to engage with this product, that he actually got some results. So, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? How
can
sometimes
I ask,
we can be
and once
trained.
again, I'm not going to hold you to knowing the science behind everything. Do you know if there is science connecting the redox biochemistry to stem cell release?
Yeah, look, I don't know the exact answer to that, but at the end of the day, Dr. Gary Samuelson, who stabilized these molecules, he said, you know, is there a cell involved? So anything that I'm going to, you know, my uneducated guess is going to be a yes, right? And there is amazing research going on right now with redox biology, redox chemistry. You can go into almost any university and type that in, and it is now a subject that they are teaching. So what's exciting is this next generation of doctors will know that our body produces a redox signaling molecule, and this is the role it plays. Whether they choose to participate.
They may not know that if that doesn't suit the powers.
Correct. But it is as a subject now, at least. So
I think that will happen once Big Pharma has found the equivalent. And I say that jokingly, because that's what, you know, for them to be taught it in medical school, there will need to be a drug that they can connect it to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
When my brother was in med school now, going back about 30 years ago, and they had a 3-hour lecture that included homeopathy, naturopathy, you know, basically all the natural therapies, but it was how to debunk it. And these days they can do, here in Australia at least, they can do one term that talks about at least things like diet and nutrition, but it is still considered so low on the discussion, you know, list when it comes to clients.
No, it's certainly
very sad,
priority,
really,
isn't it? It is.
Because our doctors 110 years ago were so much cleverer than our doctors these days. And I say that with love and affection, with 2 doctors in my family. But honestly, they don't know how the body works. They're not taught that.
No, they're not. And it's a shame. It really is. Yeah. A lot more people are seeing that too. The last 2 years has brought a lot of that more to the surface.
So, girls, where can people find out about this information? About this ASEA and Redox biochemistry technology?
Yeah, great question. So, Madonna, I believe it's very important that people do go back to the source of the person who introduced them to it. You know, there is a lot of things that we can find on the internet, whether it be through Google or through eBay, and, you know, anyone can put that there. So what we have found in the past that maybe the product has been out of date, it may not have been the correct product, and or people have purchased it and then not had the way of how to utilize the product correctly. So, you know, and then they get discouraged with it as well. So it is really important, go back to the person who invited you, who asked you to take a look at it, and get some reputable help. It also then allows you to purchase it directly from the company who has money back guarantees with it. You know, all the support that you can get is there.
And I know that sounds like a bit of a sales pitch for someone who referred you, but can I just give a couple of examples naturopathically? Sure. There's a few tricks that they do with getting herbs into the country. So unless herbal companies actually have machinery that have mechanisms of finding toxins, adding toxins like arsenic are really common to adding to dry herbs to increase the weight, and companies pay per ton for herbs.
Yeah, right.
So that's just one example. So unless a company actually has the technology to check for heavy metals and pesticides and herbicides, they're not going to be getting a pure organic thing. Another thing is colouring. Now, I know this is, you know, and I think the problem is because people will think of it just as salt water, they're not going to hear the technology behind that. If they haven't been paying attention, there's obviously a lot more to it. So you can imagine it would not be hard for someone to whack salt water into the pretty blue bottles and sell them online.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, that's way too easy to do these days. But another example is colouring, you know, because some herbs are really expensive. For example, say golden seal and goldenrod. They are golden in colour. Same with turmeric, the curcuminoids in turmeric. So that colour can be put into things. So people can be buying, you know, cheap little things going, I'm getting, you know, this much for this price. So I just did want to say, that it happens a lot in natural therapies, just buying things online.
Absolutely. And look, it's so important. This technology is a gift to the world, really. And it's important that we keep it that way. The founder of this company had the option of selling this off to a pharmaceutical, and he chose not to. And for that, we have a responsibility now that we know what it is to protect it. And that means abiding by the rules of the land. And, it doesn't cure, treat, or diagnose anything. And that we do make sure, that's the one thing I love about this company, is that you talk to the founders, we get to meet them personally. Like, they'll be here in Australia in October, with, depending on what happens with the world, but that's that they will be here. You can meet them, you can hear their words, and they are about having this technology around for generations to come.
Yeah.
And the only way we can do that is being responsible now with it and protecting it. And so that, yes, I agree with you. Sometimes things can sound salesy, but it's truly, truly not. And we're going to look back on this in years to come and go, I cannot believe that I knew about something so profound early on in the world's education of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I've been hearing about it for about 3 years now. I have not used it in my clinic. And Renergy only said to me because I muscle test what people need supplement-wise.
Yes.
And about 15 years ago, there was a cleansed zeolite product. Did you hear this story with Norm? Norm actually said to me, is it on your list of things to muscle test? And I went, oh, no. So, and if it's not on my list of things to test, then it's not going to test up for people. So I remembered putting it on the list. And in the first month, it was something that showed up for about, whether people could afford it or not was a whole different thing, but it showed up in about 70% of people. And I thought, this, so going back 15 years ago, my brain went, this obviously does something different to anything else in my clinic, because it's showing up for so many people. And that's when I started buying it in, and that's when I started utilizing it with people. And I know it's not the same thing, but the way that one made the body work for just about anything was because the only thing that zeolite does in the body is take toxins out.
Yes. Okay.
In Australia, none of our zeolite is detoxed properly. So in nature, it sops up toxins.
Right. Yes.
So Australian zeolite is filled with toxins.
Yeah.
So I'd use it for a bath, and I do have some here, Australian premium zeolite, but I would never give it to someone internally. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, no. And so how have you used the Redox at all, or muscle tested?
Only when Renergy gives it to me.
Okay. She massages with it, does she?
Yeah.
Yes, lovely. You massage with it?
That's right. Yeah. So I've been a massage therapist for about 12 years now. And just in the last 2 years sampling the Redox, it doesn't only benefit the client, but also myself as the therapist. I don't find any fatigue in my wrists anymore. And just,
And how did you use it on Madonna?
It's such a big difference when I don't treat without it.
Right.
So it's definitely something that I will use, just even to prep the blood circulation before I go on about my treatment.
Absolutely. Actually, now that you said that, by the way, one of the results in the test shows that it increases blood flow by 50% within 15 minutes of application. Yeah. Can you think of all the things that it can help with increased blood flow?
Yeah.
And this can go anywhere on your body. So, all right, it's been tested as anti-aging. So we use it, to reduce fine lines, wrinkles, skin texture and things like that. And the stats on that are amazing. I mean, 100% of people got results, and it's somewhere between 20 and 23% in just 28 days. But you put that in anywhere of your body, we're seeing that increased blood flow is promoting lots of amazing benefits.
Yeah, of course. And it's quite sensational too. Like the fellow I had here the other night, that he wasn't sure how to describe the way he was feeling, but when he said sensational, it was like, yeah, that's how I feel, but is that the right word, kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Because when you pair it as well with other inflammatories, it just helps with the signals to get those
Yeah.
ingredients into the bloodstream
Mm.
as well. So, you know, you can.
So
Yeah.
I think, Madonna, it would be great if you did some muscle testing on it and some
Yeah,
experimenting on
definitely.
yourself.
Yeah,
and
no,
let's come back and
yeah,
have
it is
a part 2.
yeah, exactly. Well, it will be very curious. I'll be very curious to see.
Yeah. It'd be
Because
great.
I also, anyway, it will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So you can reach me here at Madonna's clinic. I'm here mostly every Thursday, but if you just want to reach out and chat.
Are you happy to give your phone number?
Yeah,
or?
my phone number, or I am on Facebook. You can just send me a message through there and we can connect. Yeah. Amanda,
Absolutely.
do you want to also mention about the Facebook page we do have with the Redox?
Absolutely. There's almost 200,000 people in a group, private testimonial group online.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm in there.
You are in there. Lovely. All right. Well, go reading.
Yeah.
Go looking, because there's some amazing stories in there. So anyone that wants to be added to that, just reach out and let us know, and we'll pop you in and then tag you in some things that are relevant to each individual. Because like I said, there's 200,000 people in there. So there's a lot of different stories. So we can help you with that.
Is there a way of searching on the Facebook page so that you can look for the specific thing that because even though like I'm the same as you, I totally get that some things simply work on every cell in your body. So everyone's still going to have that story. I've got fibromyalgia, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, I've got bad eczema, I've got dermatitis, I've got irritable bowel syndrome. They're still going to want their own story.
Exactly. So just type in symptoms for each of those things.
Beautiful.
And then you'll find the right stories.
Excellent.
Yes.
Love your work. Okay, coming back for part